Alright guys, welcome back to part 2 of the auth project. So when we left off, we registered a user into our database here. As you can see, it's still right here. However, we failed to finish up this try catch. So at the end of this, we just want to say console.log error. So that ends the try catch, and as you can see, the server is still running, the database is still connected. And what we did last was when we go to routes right here, you see that we attached the controller to this route. So now what we want to do is create the login portion, because now we have the user registered. Now we want to log in. So we can go about doing so by saying, let's go back to routes. There it is. Let's just put this down 1 and change this to login. And we're going to leave this empty like we did at the beginning of this one. So I can close this for right now, and I can close this other ones for right now. Let's maximize our space here. Cool. So now, see, as you see, we have exports register. So we're going to create, let's make sure this is all the way over here so we're not creating something within it. We're going to create exports.login, and we're going to say equals to async request res next. Got it. Cool. And over here, we can just put the next right here. And that takes us to the next middleware. So if in case we have something, it'll make sense later on. But what that's for is to after all these functions have gone through, we're gonna go right to the next middleware. Gotcha. Actually, can we do this? Let's see. Cool. We just put it right here instead. So as you can see, everything's in bold, everything's more colored now, so it shows everything's being used properly. So let's just do that. And we can say is equal to const. We're gonna get the username again and the password is equal to request.body. And we're going to say const, we're going to create a user again. So if you remember at the top here in the register, we did the same thing. So we're just going to do the same thing once more. So const users await user, the model user dot find one. And we're going to call this user name. So we're going to be finding this username that pertains to the user. So this variable user pertains to the username we're looking for. And then what we're going to say is const password verification, because is equal to, all right, let me explain this really quickly. So you remember in our register, we hashed the password. So we have the password here, we hashed it. So this is what is stored in our database. We don't know what the actual password is. So it serves as a security measure because the hackers also don't know what the password is. And since it's encrypted, the only way to sign in to know to log in with the exact same password is to compare that password with using the Bcrypt comparison. So this Bcrypt hashes it for us. So bcrypt.hash. So this hashes it. Now, if you want to make sure the password we put in to our password field in the form is the same as what's in the database, so it can allow us to log in, those two passwords have to be compared. That is encrypted with that's not encrypted. So it's gonna run. Bcrypt is gonna compare both, and because whatever you hash with Bcrypt, as long as it's the same as long as anything you hash with Bcrypt, anything you encode with Bcrypt is going to be the same every time you encode it. So for that to happen, so since that happens, you can always compare it with whatever you put in as the password. So if that makes sense. So the only way I can verify this is the same password as the other one is if I I go back to the encryption service and re-encrypt and compare what I just put in with what's already in there. And if it's positive, if it's a match, it allows you in. If it's negative, it's going to return an error saying invalid credential. Hope that made sense. So const password verification, and the way we go about it is say user. So user, so if there's a user and user.password, because user within this user there's a password, then await bcrypt. Let's make sure this is wrapped. Bcrypt dot compare. Here we go. Password and user dot password. Cool. Yeah, so we're going to be comparing these two passwords. So one of them's in the database, and one of them's what we're passing into the um, into the form field. So we're going to be comparing both of them, bcrypt, and then we're going to say if not, if these don't exist, then it's false. So for password verification, we're going to say if there's a user and there's a user password, then so if the user passes in a password, then await the bcrypt and compare the password with the user's password. And then if there's not, then it's false. So that way, if we do it this way, then let's say something goes wrong and the password field, uh, let's say it's incorrect. It doesn't match in the login. So the login password doesn't match with that on the with that in the database. Rather than it just breaking, it's gonna send some kind of like false statement, or it's not gonna do anything. So it's not gonna break your server instead. And then you can say const. So now so let's leave it at this for right now, and then we can come down here. So within this object, so we can come down here and say try if user and user and password verification. So if there's a user and the password verification is successful, then return a status code res.status of 200, meaning success, .json. And the JSON can say message login success, login successful. And now we can say else res.status is 401.json. Message credentials invalid. And here we're just going to say next. So we're moving on to the next piece of middleware. So since it's a try catch, you also have to have the catch here, and it's error console.log error. Cool. And just make sure this is right here. So now let's try this out. So we're saying if there's a user and there's a password verification, and if user and the password verification are successful, then res.status 200 meaning success, and then we're going to come back with a message saying login successful. However, if it's not successful, if there's no user, if the user doesn't exist, meaning there's no username found, and the password verification is false, then we're going to say res.status, that's a status 401, meaning credentials, you're not authorized. Credentials are invalid. So okay, so let's go into the auth route and make sure we add this login controller to this route. Okay, so let's just manually put it in. There it is. All right, cool. So it's working again. So we just add the login. Once you press in login, it should just add it. I guess it was just acting funny. So you do that. And now we can close out of this. When you come over to a Postman, if you're using just make sure your Postman agent for the desktop is active, unless you're gonna get an error. Let's do this. So let's make sure that's active, Postman agent, unless it's gonna get an error. And if you turn it on after you open this up, just close it out, close the web one out, and then reopen it, unless you're just gonna get an error. Typically, that's what happens to me because I typically forget to do that. So the problem now is I don't remember what the credentials are for the one we did. So this is going to make a practice. I don't remember what the password I used was, since I made this earlier. So what we can do is go over everything we basically know now. So let's say we're going to have a register route. So make sure that's post. Let's make this bigger so we can see what we're doing. We're going to have this, and then we'll have another tab open for the login. So for the register, let's just register something new. So it's going to be raw, and it's going to be Jason. So username, we're going to say test1 YouTube or test2 YouTube. And this is going to be the same thing as the password. And for the email, at test.com. Cool. So, yeah, that should do it. And remember, this is the register route. So if we do this, wait, why is it doing that? Something went wrong somewhere. Let's see. That's interesting. Why not? So this is from MongoDB. For some reason, I guess it's just my Wi-Fi, but it's saying my IP address isn't connected. Yeah, you shouldn't get this error. It's just, I don't know why it's doing that. Run start. So let's just reconnect it. Yeah, so my database is connected, so it should be working. That was just a weird error. I typed something wrong. Oh, maybe it's because of this and this. So maybe it's because yeah, it's most likely because of that. So yeah, syntax error. Um, so if we do that, okay, there we go. So I forgot to do that. It wasn't. So let's just keep going. So it says user registration complete. So if I come here and I refresh this, you're gonna see here it has that. So here has the email. However, for our login, we're not requiring it that the email. We just have a username and a password field. The email is just for record keeping. Technically, it's like, oh, this email is associated with this person. So now if we go to red login, let's just take everything we have here, so we don't have to copy it again. So we don't have to type it out again. And we're gonna do the same thing. It's gonna be a post. The body is gonna be raw, and this is going to be JSON. Do this. We say, oh, we don't need the email, so that part doesn't matter. So if we press enter, it's going to tell us login successful, which is exactly what we said it would be. So if you look at the headers, actually not necessarily the headers, but if you look at over here, it says status code 200 OK, which is what we said the status code would be 200. And let's say we did something wrong. Let's see what the status code would be for that. So let's say we took that. Let's go back here. It's going to say credentials invalid, which is what we said here. It should show 401. And there it goes, 401 unauthorized. because our credentials are invalid. So that's pretty much the gist of login. Now let's move over to something called well, what the actual matter at hand is, which is JWT tokens. So let's go to the JWT Google JWT, and if we come here, so this explains, if you go to jwt.io, it explains what JWT is. So JWT, I believe, is not an encryption, it's more serialization. So your data, your payload data, is not necessarily encrypted. I believe there's a way to encrypt it, or you can send it as an encryption, but it's not encrypted by JSON web tokens. It's just there. Um, but yeah, so it's serialized, meaning it's written in, I think it says base 64, which is not really that secure at all. So anyone can just decode that. Yeah, there it is. It's in base 64 URL encode. Everything is base 64, and it's not hard to decode, quote unquote, it. So, in as you can see, there are just three different colors. So the first thing you're gonna get that's appended to the other thing is this red one is the algorithm and token type. So this is what the header sets as the token type. So the type is JWT, and the algorithm, encryption algorithm, is HS256. And then this second part here is the payload data. So this is what we're sending. This is what we're putting into our token. So for example, if the name is John Doe and the issued at time, so like what time it was issued at is this, and this is what it means in central time. So if it was issued at this is what we're sending in our this is what our token is carrying. And for our signature, it's literally the header and the payload with a secret. So we're going to create a secret that basically is not shared. It's just a secret, so it's better to put it in your .env file. And that everything together, all three of those together, come together. All three of those together make up the signature. So what that signature does is not that it encrypts it. What the signature does is that it serializes it to make sure that uh, the 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 server knows, or the browser knows, or the yeah, the browser knows that, hey, this stuff has not been tampered with, meaning the secret and all this stuff that came together to to make a signature is, the signature is saying, hey, nothing in this token has been tampered with. No, the payload has not been tampered with. It is verified. It's like think of it as a post service. And when you mail something and you require a signature, the signature is to say, okay, we received this. Is to say the person who you sent this to received it intact. It was not tampered with, and so it's for your own verification. So that's the way it this acts. It's like saying, okay, you sent this token, but although it's not encrypted, meaning anyone can kind of see the data, they can't manipulate that data without us knowing that it was tampered with, because they need to like change stuff. So because when anything is changed, the number. So let's add this, for example. So let's say John uh Boy. As you can see, that signature changed. That signature changes again. If it's just John, that signature changes again. If it's just Jay, it changes again. So no, if they manipulate this payload in any way, the signature that is stamped by the backend is not going to be the same. So it's going to know that it's been tampered with. It's going to reject it. So it's not going to be the same. That's why tokens, if you put an expiration on them, um, the token value changes. And if the token value changes, it's not going to be accepted wherever you're sending it to. Because if it's expired, then that token is no longer valid. It's been compromised, quote unquote. So it's not going to be taken in. So that's a quick uh, Spark Node's version of what tokens does. So what we want to do is take the token. We want to create a token anytime the user logs in and save that token in cookies. So we're going to take that token and put it inside our cookies where our front end can then receive the information from. So let's go ahead and do that. Hopefully I explained that clear enough. Um, let's so now what we want to do is we're done with the register portion. So within login, what we want to do now is create a token. So we say const token is equal to user. So if there's a user and there's a user dot ID, is it dot ID or dash ID? Yeah, let's see. Okay, so it's going to be user dot dash ID because this is what's in there. Dot dash ID. So we're going to say user dot dash ID. So if there's a user and there's a user dot dash ID, we want JWT. So this is the syntax for it. JWT dot before that's not gonna work. So before we do that, let's just make sure let's come here, index.js. Let's make sure we have JWT installed. Or we can install it here, that's fine. Const JWT is equal to require JSON web token. I don't think I installed it, so npm install JSON web token. Declare npm run start. Cool. So we have that now. So what we're gonna do is finish up that syntax we were writing. So JWT, there it is, dot sign, and we're going to be taking in, so the first thing we're going to be doing is taking in the payload, and the payload for us is going to be the ID, which is going to be the user ID, which is the ID we just saw here, this ID. It's going to be taking that user ID, so we're going to be holding that in the payload, and then we're going to create a secret. So right now we're just going to have it as secret, and comma, and then an object, and we're going to say expires in 1 hour. So this token expires every hour. Cool. We missed something. What did we miss? Oh, sorry. We didn't finish writing it out. So if all this is not there, so if this is not found, so if there's no user and there's no user ID, then we're going to say false, just like we did at the top. Cool. So that should work fine. Now let's create this secret. So this secret is going to be so we're going to go into our actually let me show you a method of doing so. So what we can do is we can say let's do this, and then we can come here and say node. We're going to be using crypto, which is a module built into Node, so you don't have to like install it. So we can say require, this would be the syntax for it, node, require crypto, cool, dot random bytes 35 to string hex. Cool. And it gives us this really, really long string of a string that includes like numbers and letters and stuff. So you can use this as your secret. It generates a random one, so I'm not going to use this, but it generates random strings for you. So you can use this as your secret string, but just make sure you put it in your environment variable, so your .env file, because it's not something you want everyone else to see. So you go ahead and do that. But I'm gonna create mine and put it into the .env and get back to you guys once I'm done with that. Okay, so now that that's done, we're just gonna do the same process.env. I called mine JWT secret, but we're just gonna use it as secret here. So have this secret. Where is it? Okay, so we just created our token. Now, how do we pass that token every time we log in? So here, rather than saying message login successful, what we can do is just say .json and then pass in token. So if we come back to here, so if we come back here and we click, so let's just say pass in token and console.log token. Actually, let's not do that. First of all, that's the wrong place to put it. Second of all, you don't want people, actually, yeah, it's not my secret, so it's my token. So we can just say console.log token. So let's see. So if we log in, what's the right credentials? Because I don't remember this anymore. So let's say copy that, paste that back there. ID, user ID. User ID is not defined. Oh, user.id. There it is. Cool. So as you can see, it printed out our token here, and we can see the token is passed every time there's the login is successful. So for example, now if I want to come here, if I come here and I grab this token and I come back to JWT, I can plug in mine. Where is it? I can plug in mine here. And as you can see, it shows me the ID. So as you can see, it's not encrypted. It's just serialized. So this is my ID here. And if I can do this with mine, I can grab anyone else's token and do the same thing. And this is the payload. So if we go back to our, this is 6452 and it ends in 2E3. So if you come back here, look here. So 6452 and ends in 62E3. This is what we just got. So we now know this, this user ID. So anyone else can see it. And this was issued here. And because we gave it an hour to before it expires, so it's issued here. So it's issued at 3:23, 11:31:08. So it should end at 14:31:08 because we said it was going to expire in an hour. So that's how that works. So now our next step is to say, let's close out of that. And I hope everything here is making sense. So we can also, if we console logged it here, we can take it out. We don't really need it there. Cool. So the next thing we can do is now say, we really don't need this. Do we need this token here? We'll keep working. Now we want to verify the token we have. So that's what we're going to be doing on this later part of the actually, let's end here. We're going to do that on the next one because I don't want to like overload this with too much information. Just remember what we did this. When we did this, we did the login and we added the JWT sign to it. So we added the payload, the secret, and the expiration. That's what we did in this one. So in the next one, we're going to be verifying the token so we know it correlates to the right user. Catch you guys on the next one.